The Blind Tony Story. Book 4, Chapter 3. Apollonia and I moved into our own place. It was in the Venice Park Lagoon section, and we had sliding glass doors on a balcony overlooking the water. It was very romantic, and it gave a lot of additional fuel to the already burning passions of our love. We also bought a 1964 Thunderbird, which served us quite well. Life was good. I ran into Aaron again, and he thought that since I had become a Black Panther that I hated all white people. But once I explained to him the difference between being a racist and socially, economically, and politically active, or an activist, he understood, and our friendship was reborn. I also explained to him that there was a White Panther Party for white people and a Young Lords Party for Hispanic people. But the overall agenda for all the parties was the same. We all were just working to try to improve the quality of life for those who were less fortunate. Apollonia and Aaron hit it off immediately, and he became a regular fixture at our house. Apollonia and I jumped in the Thunderbird one day and rode north, and we ran into Solomon up in Newark. He was living with a girl named Cheryl, who was also from Atlantic City, who had also been a member of the Black Panther Party and lived with us at 93 Summit Avenue in Jersey City. We also ran into Clem in Salvador, and I was able to convince them both that I had saved their lives. Clem said he had seen the split in the party coming weeks in advance, and he had confided in Salvador, and they had made a plan to leave, but they felt that I was just too brainwashed by the Black Panther Party for them to confide in. C'est la vie. Corey got arrested for the murder of a policeman and his dog. I had a friend named Bobby who was on the run for that same murder. Now, Bobby had introduced me to Quincy Jones's album Walking in Space when he first came home from Vietnam. He had been in the Navy. And the mother of his children was one of my closest friends. Bobby had fled to Cuba, and he stayed there for many years. His family had lived on Sewell Avenue when we were growing up. He only lived 3 doors down from us, and we all grew up together. Now he was featured on America's Most Wanted, and his picture was in all the post offices all across the country as part of the top 10 most wanted men in America. Wow. They never did catch Bobby, but he eventually tried to negotiate a surrender because he hated living in Cuba, and he said that life was horrible there. I stayed in touch with his family over the years, mainly through his brother, who was a black Muslim. Now, the case against Corey was based solely on the testimony of his girlfriend, who was also pregnant with his first child at this point, and we were able to arrange for a priest from St. Monica's Parish, Father Vincent, to marry them while he was still in jail. Now, this enabled his son, or the baby at this point, who turned out to be his son, to be able to have his last name. And his girlfriend also would not have to live in sin. It also had the dual purpose of forcing an acquittal at trial, because a wife can't be forced to testify against her husband due to self-incrimination, because the two are legally recognized as one, and a person can't be forced to testify against themselves. The police were furious about this, but that's constitutional law. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Corey was eventually released, but then he got rearrested for robbing a bus station twice. And this time, they gave him just as much time for those 2 robberies as he would have gotten for the murder of that policeman and his dog. Apollonia and I would drive his mother and the newborn baby and his wife up to Trenton State Penitentiary once a month for a visit. Eventually, his mother died and his wife and the baby disappeared, and I never saw any of them ever again, including Corey. Then I got arrested and charged with draft evasion. I was taken in handcuffs to the induction center in Philly, Pennsylvania, and I was the only person there who said that if they were found physically fit, would refuse induction. We were stripped naked and put through a battery of tests, and I kept trying to tell them that I didn't belong there. But nobody seemed willing to want to listen. Eventually, we reached a point in the line where we were about to get stuck with needles. And just like I did in Lawnside all those years ago with Benita and Mom, I ran. I ran straight out into the hallway, naked as the day I was under that fire hydrant with Teddy Bear. It didn't take long for them to usher me back inside. I now had everybody's full undivided attention, and I was able to get them to call my lawyers and verify that I was a convicted felon and didn't belong there. And I was also had been a member of the Black Panther Party, and if they ever placed a weapon in my hands, the enemy would define himself by his actions. I was then placed back on the bus for Atlantic City and classified officially as 4F, mentally unstable. The Vietnam War was in full swing at this point, and people were being called up to report based on their birthdays all the time. The president would pull birthdays out of the hat, lottery style, and that would determine whether you had to report. My birthday had been pulled years ago, but I had refused to report. But once that policeman and his dog got killed, all of us were rounded up, and as a consequence, I now had to pay the piper. And now, after paying the piper, I was still free, and life was good. Aaron's father had just bought him a business, and he was doing quite well. I, on the other hand, was parking cars at a parking lot during the summer months for an old Jewish man named Maxie, who adopted Apollonia and me as his son and daughter. During the winter months, I drove a truck for a company called Spencer Gifts. I had encouraged Apollonia to go back to school, and I would drop her off and pick her up every day at Stockton Community College. She was studying to become a nurse. Aaron and I would hang out every day, and I had a nice, thriving drug business going again. I also started playing music again, only this time I was primarily playing horns as well as keyboards. And my favorite instrument at this point in time became the flute. I also started working out, and I became quite proficient in the martial arts. Apollonia's mother had met a man from the West Indies who worked for the airlines, and she was about to get remarried, and as a result, she asked Apollonia and I to take over the house in Bungalow Park, as well as the house on the bay, because all the other siblings had left home. So suddenly we found ourselves living in a baby mansion with a garage, an attic, a large basement apartment, a big yard, and we could rent that basement apartment out. I bought a baby grand piano and put it in the living room. Apollonia bought a beautiful wicker canopy bed. And we were looking great on the outside. But looks can be deceiving, because even though that baby grand piano looked beautiful, it sounded horrible and never stayed in tune. And even though that beautiful wicker canopy bed looked like something out of a fairy tale, it was never comfortable to sleep in. Likewise, we too looked good on the outside, but we were slowly drifting apart. Lemuel had moved away, but before he had left, he told me I needed to pay more attention to Apollonia. At the time, I didn't know what he meant, and I kind of resented the fact that he was all up in my personal business. Apollonia and he were very close, but then again, she was close to all my friends. Still, I had a funny feeling about their relationship. Around this time, one day Apollonia just started hitting me, and she wouldn't stop. and I grabbed both her hands, but every time I let them go, she would start hitting me again. Eventually, she ripped my shirt, and I had to run away. Looking back now, I could see that moment I was at the crossroads, in a way, because she wanted me to take control, to actually control her, but I refused. She was trying to see how far I would let her go before I would put my foot down. And the answer was painfully clear. I wouldn't put my foot down if I could avoid it. I would rather get hit than to hit her. I would simply walk away if given the chance. If Apollonia was going to love me and stay with me, it was because she loved me and wanted to stay with me, not because of what I would do to her if she didn't. I don't want no puppy dog, or a puppet, or a crash test dummy. And I still don't. But there still is a balance that must be maintained in a relationship, because I do believe the man is supposed to be the head, and that the woman was created to be his helper. A ship can only have one captain, and even though he may let others take the helm and steer, he is still the captain, and ultimately he is responsible. My weakness for Apollonia would have far-reaching implications that would haunt me for many, many years to come. Had I just shut her down or hit her, I probably would have kept her love and allegiance a lot longer than I did. But just like Adam did in the Garden of Eden with Eve, I got weak.